Helpless in her grasp, the sea hag dragged the prince to her cavernous lair. Try as he did, Beowulf could not even draw his sword to defend himself against this water wolf, nor against the onslaught of twisting sea monsters now slashing at him with their tearing tusks that threatened to rip away his life-saving battle coat. Still held fast in her deadly embrace, Beowulf found himself hauled to the surface in a vaulted cavern, lit all about with fires of hell it seemed. But at least he could breathe again, and was free of the pressing weight of water. Now, at least, he would not simply be swept away and drowned. Then he looked up and saw the monstrous size of this hideous sea hag. He had felt her strength already. Undaunted, he saw his chance. He broke free of her, tore himself away, drew Hrunting, circled it high above him, and brought it screaming down on her head. Sure it must be her death stroke, but Hrunting, that battle-hardened, all-powerful sword that had sliced so easily through helmet and mail, could not bite this monster's hoary hide, but simply bounced off, leaving her flesh unharmed, unscathed, unmarked even. Never before had Hrunting felled a warrior in a fight as it had now. But Beowulf, intent on victory, was not in the least downhearted. Rather, his courage was renewed, his ferocity sharpened. Seeing its blade edge would be useless, the hero flung Hrunting aside, and trusted in now, as he had before, in his own strength, to the God-given power in his hands. Now was not the moment to think of saving his life. Now would be his time of testing, his achieving of everlasting glory. Anger steeled his strength, fury fired his determination, stirred him to action. Beowulf hurled himself at Grendel's mother, grabbed her by the shoulder, and threw her body to the ground. But in a moment she repaid him fully, grasping him with her horrible hand hooks so that he stumbled and fell, too weary now to save himself. At once she was astride him. He was at her mercy. She snatched up her dagger. Now she would avenge her boy, her only son. With a scream of triumph she struck, but the mail shirt shielded him from the sharp-edged blade, from the deadly point. Again and again she stabbed and slashed. But Beowulf's blessed battle shirt did not fail him. Without it, the Geat hero would certainly have been slaughtered there and then. But God, looking down, saved him, gave him the victory. Summoning the last of his strength, Beowulf threw her off and leapt to his feet, and there above him on the wall he saw hanging an ancient war trophy, a giant sword, so huge, so heavy, that only a giant could wield it in to battle play. But this death-defying champion, this Geatish hero, was boiling with war fury. Like this, he was as strong as any giant, and he knew it. He sprung to the wall, caught up the sword by its hilt, and whirling it once above his head, the blade singing out its death song, he brought it down on her neck, in one blow cutting clear through bone and flesh. Her death agony was swift, and when it was done she lay at his feet stilted by death. Beowulf's giant sword, hot with her fiendish blood. It was over. It was done. The monster mother was united in death at last with her monster son. Looking about him now in that hell-hole, Beowulf saw scattered there the wretched remains of Hrothgar's brave hearth companions, those that Grendel had murdered as they slept in Hur. He saw too where Grendel himself lay, stiff in death, his life-blood long gone, drained from him. There was one more task for this giant sword. Beowulf, the fiercest of champions, finished the task and severed Grendel's hideous head with a single swipe. Way up above, in the light of the day, Hrothgar and his thanes, hearts heavy with anxiety, watched and waited by the pool. Fearful too were the Geatish warriors for their prince, especially when they saw blood bubbling up from the depths, marbling the surface of the water. Many long hours had passed now since Beowulf dived down into the deep, and most now believed that the famous hero could not this time be triumphant, but that she, The she-wolf, that devilish sea-hag, had at last done him to death. As dusk came down over that dreary place, Hrothgar and his thanes turned sadly for home and hearth, all hope now abandoned. But the Geats stayed, stunned with grief, hoping against hope to see once more their beloved leader. But they knew well enough now that they would not. Down below in the ogre's lair, Beowulf looked about him in wonder at the heaped hoard of treasures, blood booty of that damned pair. Much good it was to them. The Geat hero took none of their treasures when he left, only the head of Grendel, hunting the sword that had failed him, and the hilt of the giant's sword that had done the she-wolf to death. Only the hilt remained of this deadly war-weapon. The engraved blade itself had simply been melted away by the hot blood of the doomed fiend that lay headless there. So Beowulf, that sainted survivor, plunged once more into the deep, and with powerful strokes swam upwards through the water, unhindered now by sea serpents and writhing monsters of the deep. For the pool was now cleansed of these vile creatures, gone where all evil goes, where Grendel and his mother had gone, down to hell itself where they belonged, never to return again. The first his faithful companions saw of their beloved prince was his silver war-helmet breaking the waves. Then, with spirits high in joy, they rushed to the water's edge to help him, wondering at his battle trophies, all of them thanking God for his victory and his safe return unharmed to their side. Quickly they loosened his mail shirt and helmet, and all welcomed him joyously, good friends and loyal hearth companions. So they left that dreadful pool behind them, blood-red from shore to shore, and still as death. It was a place all of them were happy to leave, Beowulf most of all. A bold spring in their step, carefree now at heart, they followed the well-trodden path back towards Heorot. It was a triumphant procession, but a slow one, for that heavy head, Grendel's hideous head, had to be carried, and it was no easy matter, I can assure you. It took 4 of the strongest Geats to hold the spear steady. The dreaded head stuck high on the point, glaring in death all about it as they went. So with Grendel's head aloft they made their way to Heorot, 14 brave Geats and the great warrior prince. Marching into that splendid mead hall they came, much to the surprise and joy of everyone there. As Beowulf held up that monstrous head by its unlovely locks, it was indeed as ugly a thing as any they had ever seen. An awesome sight, but one that no longer brought fear to their hearts, only rapturous relief and great gratitude towards the Prince of Warriors. They listened to him now, Hrothgar and his queen, and all the gathered thanes. "We have brought back to you, great King of Denmark, all these trophies of our victory. They were heavy indeed to carry, but our heart's song made light of the burden. I will not pretend to you it was easy, my lord. It was a close-run thing, this fight under water, a fight I very nearly lost before it had begun. Hunting, for a fine weapon though it is, was useless against this she-wolf of the deep. But God was with me, and I thank only him for my victory. I snatched up another sword, a giant of a weapon, hanging there on the wall, and with it I avenged all the murder and misery inflicted on you by this family of fiends. First the monster's head I severed, then this grisly reminder still lying there from that earlier conflict. Your enemies are dead, you have peace back, so all of you may now sleep safely in Heorot. We have seen the last of them, my lord king. Everyone here can rest assured of that, I promise you." Then Beowulf presented to the silver-haired king the golden hilt, all that remained of the giant sword that had done such damage in the fight. So the hilt belonged fittingly to Hrothgar, the best and wisest of kings. He spoke now to the silent hall. "Beowulf, my friend and best of men, your name and your nobility will resound throughout the world, even in the farthest corners. I marvel not only at your strength, but at the wisdom of one so young. Stay as generous and peaceable as you are. Beowulf, do not become as other heroes have before you, so turn to battle that a thirst for blood consumes you. I tell you this because I am old in years, and I know that all men, however noble and fine, are frail and our lives are finite. At the height of our powers, when triumph succeeds triumph, we cannot imagine an end to our success. Pride grows within us. Despite ourselves, we can easily forget that our powers are God-given and should be only used in His service. Know, beloved Beowulf, that even with you the end must come. Flesh and strength will fail. You are now in the high noon of your strength, but waiting for you, and not so far away, is sickness maybe, or a slashing sword, burning fire or drowning wave, the stab of a dagger, or just old age. Death awaits us all. I thank God in His great mercy my own death has been postponed long enough for me to enjoy this moment, the end of Grendel and his kind, to gaze in triumph at his glory head. So remembering all this, let us rejoice and feast together tonight, and in the morning I shall give you all your promised treasure.